for those that have joined us, hi, Adam, student, Steve, Matt Ellis, intelligence Allen. Oh, Mike Ortez. Oh, it's populating.
Now, yeah. Maybe they didn't really know.
Good thing we've
been stuff away.
Good thing we've been shooting the shit for the last 20 minutes. So, anyways, welcome. This is where we will be talking about the physical and cyber information security, the Nexxus, and kind of keeping with the conference theme about pursuing jobs in this area. Not everything is totally 100% cyber. And there's other things that we do in the military or have done in the military that cross over nicely into information security. And so we're going to talk about it. So a little bit about myself. I'm Chris Wolski. I'm a retired Navy chief, as you couldn't tell on the wall behind me, and my little Ken doll right here. But what we have with us today is a group of guys that I've been hanging out with for the last, year and a half. And we were part of a group called Maritime Security Talk, or MAST. And, kind of a joke of going on Captain's Mast. We take maritime security issues and we take them to the captain and basically just shoot the shit about it. And then, we figure out how to fix all the world's problems and nobody listens to us. So, with me, I have Julio Gonzalez. He's the guy that looks like wearing a leprechaun shirt. I don't know if he's in the right or left or wherever. Julio, tell us about you.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Julio Gonzalez. I'm a Coast Guard veteran, so nothing against the Navy, but, oh well. What can we do? Somebody's got to protect them. 18 years, civilian life in the Coast Guard, now working for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. I do the later part of that title. I dabble with cyber a little bit, just nature of the beast. But for the most part, I focus on physical security, emergency management, preparedness, and continuity of operations, looking at supply chain, looking at dependencies and interdependencies for critical infrastructure assets. And I, stumble into this Motley Crew a few years back, little by little, and here we are today. So we enjoy ourselves talking about physical security. We do cyber physical security convergence every day, every time we talk, because we're just looking at things from different perspectives, which is the same thing our adversaries are doing right now. Is how can we attack from multiple points? I think that's it's typical in war, and it's definitely happening now in the civilian side of the house. But anyways, I'll pass it on to Nick.
If he can figure out how to unmute himself.
I was testing.
Coast Guard folks, man, they gotta be handheld.
It was a test.
Can't go into deep water without somebody holding their hands.
One of the first jokes that I heard about the Coast Guard that I didn't really get at first was that I'd met the minimum height requirement. And I had to look at him. I had to look at the guy for a little bit. Like, what are you? And this was at an airport. Like, TSA screener told me that, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well, I heard you have to be able to wade ashore if your ship, if your ship sinks in the Coast Guard." It's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, funny." Yeah. So, but I did meet the minimum height requirement for the Coast Guard, so that was good. I didn't even know there was one. But yeah, sorry about that. Nick Parham. I worked for the Coast Guard as a civilian, prior active duty veteran. My career was in what we used to call marine safety. Now shifts we call it prevention. But a lot of vessel inspection, marine casualty investigations, but also port security. So that's kind of where I got into the realm of security work. Coast Guard side of things. Julio and I were both in the Coast Guard active duty during the rollout of Marine Transportation Security Act, which came out right after 9/11, which really is kind of the impetus for a lot of where we began in our security careers, and it's been interesting to see how it evolves now into cybersecurity. Some things that we faced as we rolled out MTSA that we're rolling, now working as a civilian in a position we call Marine Transportation Systems Specialist Cybersecurity. It's a very long title, but it does have cybersecurity in it. But so it's kind of, my position is really kind of helping to move from a purely, or a primary focus on physical security to now incorporating cybersecurity into how we're, concerned about security of the nation's ports and the vessel, maritime operations out there. So excited to talk to everybody, and getting into this community. One of the first people I met was Marco. He and I worked together at the Gulf of Mexico in my previous position, Gulf of Mexico Area Maritime Security Committee. Marco, man, if you want to wrap up the introductions.
I'm happy to be here with the crew and be hanging out with VetSec Con. Infraguard Sector Chief here out of Houston, Galveston, but I also met Nick and also Julio and Chris was the Area Maritime Security Committee, which is sponsored by the Coast Guard for Houston, Galveston, but also the Outer Continental Shelf, which I serve for cybersecurity and threat intelligence. Background is automation and control systems, industrial automation and control systems that been doing that for over 27 years. And for the last 18, been focusing on industrial cybersecurity way before it was coined operational technology. So did some cutting edge, bleeding edge detection and monitoring for those systems early on, post Y2K, while everything was still on a converged network. So, but yeah, just really happy to be here, especially to talk about the physical and cyber. So looking forward to engaging with the folks here. And go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. And one person that couldn't make it today, but would have also been very good to have here, is Mike Zeisemer. And Mike Zeisemer is I don't know, you can't say former Marine because once a Marine, always Marine, but he's a civilian now. And he was at the Port of Houston as their physical security officer, pretty much ran physical security. And how did that tie into cyber? Well, I was at Port of Houston, and pretty much Mike was my counterpart, and we worked arm in arm in securing the Port of Houston. Good things happen to those that start taking on more capability and broadening their horizon. And Mike ended up fleeting up to become a terminal director for one of the major terminal operators here in the United States. I think even internationally, Sarah's, I think, is an international company. And he's actually helping managing the build out of a terminal for Royal Caribbean in Galveston. So all that stuff he learned from this group and working cyber and his physical actually led him to being the guy that's running the whole show there in Galveston for Sarah. So incredible. So with that, what you see here, 4 guys, is, for me, I'm a CISO. I came up as an analyst, working in the basement of the Pentagon, 20 years in intelligence as a analyst and data collector and information assurance and all that happy horse crap. That was back then, to where I'm at now as the CISO. I'm currently on my 4th role as a CISO. And I think one of the things that makes me successful is my time in the military, because I really, I'm a glutton for punishment. It just keeps coming. You just keep pounding on me, and I just keep getting stronger and harder, right?
You like it.
Yeah, whether I like it or not, right? But a lot of those lessons learned that we had, especially from those terrible leaders that we've ever worked for. Everybody's like, "Oh, I'm never going to be like him." Well, use that as a lesson to never be like that terrible leader. For me, that my route to becoming a leader in an organization and leading their information security program takes in a lot of stuff. So I got background or a bachelor's degree in cyber, a master's in business degree. So those types of things are, kind of help me fill some check boxes to get me into the position and been in the positions where I've been. But I tell you what, one of the things I hate about this position, it's hard to go backwards. I would love to go back to be an analyst sometimes, because they figure once you've become a CISO and you've been at that level, no, you'll never be happy going backwards. Moving up is not always the greatest. There's a lot to stress and a lot to deal with, but it's one of those things that you end up going from one high level position to another. Julio, I know you're about to take a drink. That's why I'm having you talk now.
Did you just compare being a CISO to being a Mustang? So going from enlisted to officer? Did you just did that?
Basically, yeah.
Chief
Stallion. I think he meant stallion. Like
No. I could have said bull, but I didn't want to go there.
All right, now we'll give you our perspective of a CISO.
Yeah. Well, apparently I suck. So
the tall guy or the girl.
But
so let me continue on that line, right? So we talk about physical and cybersecurity convergence, and so so I got into CISA 2.5 years ago. Most of my background before that, well, all of my background has been law enforcement, it's been intelligence, and emergency management. When I was in the Coast Guard, moving into CISA was interesting because now I'm dealing with all these, cyber events, cyber policies, and best practices. And one thing I've learned is the technical side of cyber is special, right? You do need to have a skill set to be able to understand. Now, what I found is the concepts of cybersecurity, they're really not that different from physical security, right? One of the most simple things in physical security is understand what your baseline is, right? Understand what's right, and recognize when something doesn't look right. Which in cybersecurity, I think that's where we're struggling, is to find enough people that can look at the fence line and say, "Yep, that looks okay," or "Whoop, wait a second, there's a hole over there. How do we fix that? How do we mitigate that?" So a lot of the concepts of security are very, very similar. What changes is how you go about it to protect it in the technical side. So I can speak physical security policy and strategy all day long. However, don't put me in front of a computer because I can probably, like Nick, couldn't find the mute button. It happens.
Great. I'm that guy now.
Hey, you earned that title, my man.
Hey, I did it to myself.
But so as a veteran coming into the cyber side, I've dabbled. I've talked to, I got great mentors like Marco and Chris. They're amazing people at what they do, and I've been debating back and forth. Should I go for a degree or should I go for a certification? And I think eventually I will. It's just one of those things that. Don't be nervous. I get contacted by cyber recruiters all the time. I think probably because the name of my agency, they assume that I'm a cyber guru, and then I talk to them and like, yeah, I don't think you're what we're looking for. But being a CISO, like Chris was saying, when you get to that level, is you don't need to be a techie. You need to understand the concepts, and you need to be able to look at the larger picture to be able to make decisions. And and as a CISO, then you hire all the technical expertise and SMEs that you need. But it's an interesting world. It's a whole new field of work. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen over the next few years.
There's a really good comment Brant's put into the chat saying that coming from a non-IT background, leveraging the physical security experience, that coming in from that, like you were saying, but a defense in-depth strategy, trying to bury it deep, put in some type of monitoring, some type of delay of full access. So the same idea, same concepts of building that. And what has drastically changed, though, is this whole Internet of Things, the industrial Internet of Things. You've got cameras that are now networked, badge readers, turnstiles, even bollards, like pop-up bollards that are all network based. And so you've got just this whole thing of physical and cyber convergence. So I like Brance's point there, is that having that non-IT background using that physical aspect is definitely there. Where it gets challenging, though, and I think Julio, you captured that, is how do you, in the physical, it's usually you can deter, right? You can detect, deter, delay, deny, and so how do you do that on a network where you may not have visibility? Or you have visibility, but you have no one monitoring, or the people that you have monitoring it may not be understanding what they're seeing. So there's that people, process, technology issue, and then there's the workforce space. So I'll just open it up and hand it over to our legal expert in the room, Nick Parham, who could probably talk further about how that all works.
So he's our C lawyer. Yeah,
he's our C lawyer.
Yeah. So it's and it's a great conversation. And so one thing with my background is, once I completed my time with the Coast Guard, I did decide to pursue a law degree. So I do have a law degree. My JD, I finished up after I finished with the Coast Guard. I thought I was done with the Coast Guard, honestly. Working for the military, but I tell people this all the time, and I'm sure there's people that are attending this. You just never know where your career is going to go. It's not something I ever expected to get into with cybersecurity. And as I was going to law school, I never thought I'd go back to work for the Coast Guard. I had all intention of going to become a practicing attorney. And I tell people this all the time. I don't regret going to law school. I just wish I had thought about what the life of a junior attorney looks like. And for those of you that served as junior officers, served as junior enlisted folks, it is it's basically going back to that lifestyle. And if you're not willing to do that in the middle point of your life with children, that's that's something to consider. But we joke about me being the C lawyer, but that's where it comes from. I do have my law degree, but it did provide me the insight to look at things from a different perspective when it comes to how we as regulatory agencies, the Coast Guard, CISA, it says, okay, you guys are non-regulatory. Sorry, I can't say that you're right. You guys are there to help, not to regulate. Sorry. But the government agencies, how our laws are made and enacted and everything, and then seeing it in the cybersecurity realm came from a position that I came back into as a security specialist. I was, it was a good job, good location, good pay. That's what I went into. So I finished up my last final in law school was on a Friday, and I went back to work for the Coast Guard on that following Monday as a civilian. It was absolutely not what I had in mind at the beginning of my 3 years of law school, but it's been great, and I've loved it. But one of the first people I met was Marco, because the Coast Guard was pushing into cybersecurity. And that's what I'll say too, for those of you that aren't too experienced in cybersecurity, is if you can find somebody in the cybersecurity community, and I think if you look, you'll find people that are very welcoming, that want to help you to learn this stuff, and they'll recognize, like, hey, okay, this guy maybe is never going to be the one that's going to be on the keyboard with me, getting into the network and everything, but they can champion some of the things that I'm trying to do, or some things that I've seen. And I think Marco's a great example of somebody like that, that's done that in the work through his community and working through the InfraGuard and AMSD and all that stuff. So finding people like that can kind of mentor you as a peer-to-peer mentoring level, that aspect I think is something great for you to pursue. And I think if you after this is over, if you reach out to any of us, I think we'd be more than willing to help in that regard. In terms of, if we can't help you, we'll find somebody that will. I think that's something I've always known about Julio, Marco, and Chris. If we can't help you, we'll typically send you to somebody that we think could. And I think that's the great thing I've found in the cybersecurity community, especially, is that there's people recognize that we need more people, and the only way we're going to do that is by welcoming as many people as possible that are interested in this career field, to kind of build it out and get more people at the table. So
definitely
my 2 cents on the transition between the two, and kind of how that's helped me, and what my advice I would give. But yeah, Marco, I mean, however you've seen that evolving from your perspective, I think would be great to hear too.
Yeah, I think some of the key pieces that, especially for veterans that that are looking to either cross over or into this convergence side of it, there's a lot of opportunities because there is a mass shortage of folks that we need in positions to help us with assessments, field audits, risk assessments, things of that nature that you can drive and be able to pull in some of your expertise from the physical side, but also the cyber folks as well. So it's kind of that cross training because I know within my company we've got like 28 job openings. I mean, it's just because we've got.
You didn't tell me.
I meant we have 2 job openings, and so
I'll come work for you.
We've already got it. We've already got CISOs. No.
I don't want to be a CISO. I want to be an analyst.
So my point. Okay, well, I'll send you a meet and greet card. So
all right.
I think.
But I got to get paid what I'm getting paid now, though.
Yeah. Oh no. Well, so the other point is, you derailed me. I thought of all those numbers out to the right. The main piece is for the veterans that there's opportunities, especially Skills Bridge if you're still in your transitioning over, but we need a lot more folks in the cyber realm. Some of the big pieces that we're facing though is I guess aside from the lack of workforce is that we have a culture that hasn't really caught up with safety. Like safety is paramount in every industry. Safety is number one. We talk about it. It's more than slips, trips, and falls. But when it comes to cyber, when we have cyber-physical systems, that it could be anywhere from gate closures, but it could also be blowout preventers, or it could be a refinery or whatever the cyber-physical components may be. We need folks to be able to understand the systems and help us with that. So that convergence is key, but what we're finding is the maturity level is not there yet. And even the components that we have are far behind. They're catching up, but we're still looking 5 to 10 years before we have equipment that has capabilities that can support multi-factor authentication, complex passwords, full encryption in between points. And a lot of that's due to latency. So there's a lot of need for folks that are out in the field. So Chris,
Julio, come on. I mean, you tell you what, Julio's the one we usually can't get to shut up. So he's quiet.
Hey, I'm learning my lessons. Okay. No, one thing, just jumping on what Marco was saying is one thing I've noticed, and this is not trying to be offensive to the younger generation, but a lot of the cyber technical security people are young, 20s, right? They've done their degree or either that, or they've been, hacking somebody since they were 12. And that's who we have on the workforce today. And that's all great and dandy. One thing that I've noticed sometimes when I'm talking to this analysts and technical younger generation is somewhat the lack of experience and the lack of looking at things from different perspectives, right? Perfect example, working a cyber incident, and I'm talking to the analyst, and this is the guy that he's a watch supervisor or something along those lines, some level of leadership, and I'm talking and I'm explaining him what the consequences of this incident are or is, and he's kind of like nonchalant, like, so what do you want me to do about it? And it's kind of like, well, wait a second, aren't you like the supervisor here? What are we going to do about it? I'm asking you, you're the technical guy. What can we do about it? And it was like, well, I'm not sure. I got to talk to a supervisor. And then from that supervisor went to another supervisor who ended up getting to like the, number 2 guy in the agency to say, absolutely, here's the things that we need to do, So I think, as veterans coming into the cyber world, again, we've talked about the concepts are pretty similar to the physical security side, to what we all done in the military in one way or another. But having the experience to take risk and having the leadership experience to, understand the whole of a situation and coming up with a strategy to try to solve it. I think that's something that we need more of in the cyber side. You know, you can be the technical guy and know, okay, this is not good, but
Yeah.
making decisions as to how you're going to remediate the situation and, you know, the mitigation strategy and all that, sometimes the decision making process is the experience is just not there, and that's just my experience.
So one of the things that, I mean, what you're alluding to that also works well is, you know, taking that experience, like you just kind of said, and figuring out what needs to be done, what's the next step, what do we do to mitigate. It's also a lot of that can be applied to the job application process, right? So after coming out of working government and working contractor for government, moved into the private sector. Um, Getting a job was a lot more difficult than I'd ever thought it would be. And the reason being is because we have artificial intelligence bots screening resumes. And because those AI bots are looking for keywords and phrases and stuff like that, they don't show up a lot of times in somebody that's got a military resume. Um, so you have to, when you're doing your resumes and you're doing your job search, you have to do a lot of that research on that company. You have to do a lot of research on that on the job description, so that you can put all that into a document that will game up. You know, you're gaming the system to try to beat the AI bot that doesn't understand, you know, military terminology and phrases. So. Any words of advice for people looking for those types of, you know, or new roles, advices coming out of the military or government?
I mean, it's a. I was gonna say my advice is it's a pain in the butt, but you got to take the time to customize your resume to the job. I mean, there's so many. I mean, there's so many times where you can upload a resume, post it to different, Indeed or different job services and everything. But if you're focusing your application someplace, you got to look at it, and you got to change up your resume a little bit. It's going to come clear if you've just used a boilerplate resume that just has nothing specific that really speaks to why you're interested in that job, because not every job asks for a cover letter. Cover letters are great, but and that kind of gets across why you'd be interested in the job. But if it doesn't, then you got to do it in your resume. And you got to show in your resume why you're interested in the job, instead of just saying, "Well, you figure it out. You figure out why." You got to sell yourself a little bit. You know?
Yeah. You know, with that, you know, one thing I did after I got out of the service, and I mean, it helped me out, was I hire a resume writer, you know, and I met with her several times. I took all my OERs from the Coast Guard and all my awards, and I said, "Here, look at all the stuff that I've done, and here's the type of jobs that I'm looking for." And she did a phenomenal job in 2 pages, you know, put out my entire, you know, profile. And, you know, as soon as I put that resume out there, I started getting phone calls or starting anything, because it was going through the process and had all the keywords and had all the things. It costs money. I'm not going to lie. You know, it's just a few $100. I think last time I contacted her was like, you know, it depends on the job you're applying for. You're applying for a $500,000 job. Yeah, you can probably spend $1,000 on getting you a resume, you know, professionally written, and or your LinkedIn profile all good to go. Because, well, if you're applying for that type of job, you can probably afford $1,000. It's nothing, right? It's just penny in the bucket. But you know, not all of them are that expensive. But yeah, look for assistance. I mean, there's plenty of resources out there. Look for people that are in the industry that can look at your resume and say, "Hey, man, you need to do this. You need to do that. You need to highlight this area that things you've done." I mean, I've done that plenty of times. I think, Marco, you've looked at my resume like a couple of times. You know, so has Chris and Mike. We all done it for people. So use your network and use your resources to make sure that your resume will
Right.
at the top.
The other thing about writing, the other thing about writing a resume is write the resume or use a resume format for the level of the position you're looking at. A analyst position resume, maybe more along the lines of, things that you're knowledgeable in and what you're capable of doing. And whereas somebody that's running or looking to become a manager or an executive in a company, it's an entirely different format and entirely different type of information goes in that resume. I see the people that come out and they go through the transition assistance, resume writing class. Basically, it teaches them how to write a resume to find a job at Home Depot. It doesn't tell them how to, and Home Depot working on, as a cashier. It doesn't, help them write the resume needed to get into a serious organization that, you're looking at, a senior, a manager level, or and up. It's entirely different, and you guys show how you've impacted the company, and how what you've done has improved the company, saved X millions of dollars, or even a couple $1,000s or whatever. Show that you're doing that. So,
Yeah.
you were about to say something, Marco, before I cut you off.
I was just going to say to reach out to folks in the particular industry that you're interested in, because it could save you a lot of time. I know I get a lot of folks that request that, hey, this is the kind of work that I'm hoping to want to do. What classes can I get? What certifications should I get? And that will really help you, especially if you're trying to say get into oil and gas or chemical or offshore on systems level stuff, because there might be things that you'll end up taking that may not be relevant or premier as far as what people look at. And some of this stuff could be free training or very low cost training, or non certification but certificate based. So there's a lot of opportunities to make sure that, hey, the area you're looking for matches the training that you're going to get. Otherwise, you might be out in left field when you're in front of an interviewer and saying, well, you come here for this particular job, tell us your background. You give the background, you give some certifications that are really great for, this other industry in far left field. So reach out to folks that are here on this panel if you have questions around that kind of training. So it's important, because there's so much that's out there. You could go down the wrong, or you could go down I won't say wrong. You'll go down a path that may not be beneficial to you in the end. I'll just put it to you that way.
Yeah.
Well, and I think everybody's used to that when you join the military. You think you're going to do one thing, you end up doing something completely different.
Yeah. Or I have no concept of what the organization does. I mean, I grew up in New Mexico, and I was like, I'm going to join the Coast Guard. Even when I got accepted, I didn't totally know what I was going to be doing until I got to OCS. So yeah,
there's some really good comments in the chat area that are referring to like John Stoner at VetSec, who can look at resumes. That is awesome. That is exactly what you want to be doing. So
I saw that too from Jason. That comment there, Jason, about people networking. Man, that is exactly right too. All these job searches and everything you're doing like in the blind. Never forget those people, those connections you made with, your old shipmates, whoever you were deployed with, all those different things. Hopefully you treated each other well in the past, because you never know when that might come back. But, just reach out to them, nothing else. If you live in the same area, go grab a drink with them, go do something. If you don't, hit them up on social media, whatever it may be, and just say, hey man, what are you up to? Just check in with them, and you never know what that's going to turn into. But the people networking side of things, and I don't know if I really realized the value of that and how much I've learned that in the military. It's not something they really tell you. Hey, we're teaching you networking, like personal networking skills, right? They never really tell you that until you get out, and then you realize, hey, it's not that hard for me to go talk to like this group or that group. I don't know. I've had to get up and speak in front of people I don't know all the time, or I've had to introduce myself to people all the time that I didn't know, and get to figure out how to work with them, and it's a great soft skill that you learn that you don't necessarily realize the value of sometimes until you have to apply. But I thought that was a great comment there, Jason. Yeah, people networking, because you're exactly right. You can get a connection about a job before it's even hit the street.
Oh, Oh yeah, yeah. I was going to say that, Nick, is one thing we call in the Coast Guard service reputation, right? Um, Industry reputation in the civilian side, it amazing, right? You think of something like oil and gas or oil spill response, or think about it. There's huge industries, but really, it's not that big. Everybody knows each other. Everybody talk about different people that they've met, um, and the reality is like probably like 60 or 70% of the really good jobs don't even ever hit a Indeed or hit a platform where they're looking for a job, because guess what? If that position is so important, that hiring manager is going to look for the people that he knows, or people that knows people he knows that he can trust, that can get the job done. And most of the best job offers I've ever gotten, it has been that way. It's like I get a random phone call. Hey, so and so told me that you do this, and here's a position I want to fill. And it's like, okay, who told you that? I said, man, I'm glad I treated that guy right, because he just got me a hell of a job offer, and I didn't even know about it. So it happens. Networking is important. Reputation is very important. We haven't even touched on the social media side of things, but nowadays everybody Google your stuff and go through Facebook, go through LinkedIn, see what you've been up to. All of that stuff, your reputation is extremely important, to find jobs and for hiring managers to find you sometimes. So,
Yep. And that's how I got my current job. Somebody reached out to me and said, "Hey, and again, social media, LinkedIn presence is what actually draw that person to me. So it's really, really important to have a good LinkedIn presence. And the other thing that goes along with that is um, learn what those recruiting companies are. If you're looking for a certain industry to get into, look at the recruiting companies that feed that industry. um, there's some legitimate ones out there, and they're not gonna just sit there and fill your inbox. Like my Gmail account is just filled with, you know, everybody. It's like, oh, I see there's a job opening, and they start sending out 100, emails to saying, hey, we need somebody in Philadelphia today, or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, they're not really legitimate. They're just trying to jump on the band. They're the bandwagon recruiters. There's actually companies out there that are the go-to recruiting companies for certain companies, and they reach out to them. So find out if you can, hey, what is the recruiting company that you use to fill your roles? Or get to know the recruiters at the companies that you're interested in. That also helps. So, well, we're at about 11:27, and so it means we have a few minutes left. Is there anybody wanting to say anything? Any questions, comments? Thank you, Jason, for all your input. Brad,
Yeah.
thank you.
Good time.
Yeah, yeah. It's just in time for another cup of coffee.
Yep. All
I'll
right.
just put a plug out there. The Coast Guard's hiring for cyber professionals. Take a look at USA Jobs. Love to have
CISO,
you.
your turn.
hey, CISA's also looking. Everybody's looking for cybersecurity specialists and cybersecurity advisors.
Private sector is always looking. Private sector is always looking as well.
And it pays better, I hear. I just, But no, yeah, look for USA jobs. I mean, there's a lot of positions out there. Every government organization is looking for cyber expertise and security expertise, and you get your veterans preference too. It's just a good way to get your foot in the door into the sector that you want, right? And be able to use the skill set that you bring from the military. I tell you one thing, as a hiring manager. So you can tell when somebody hasn't done their homework in USA Jobs, because you read their resume and there's so many acronyms and Bravo 62 whatever, and deployments, and you use all the military lingo, and so in the federal government you do have a lot of veterans that can see that, and they understand what the value that you bring to the table is. And I've had to do that. You know, I've just went through a hiring process, and the person that I picked to interview, my bosses who did not have the same military background were like, we don't understand what this guy brings to the table. And I had to, I went out of my way to translate what that resume meant.
Thanks,
and
Julio. See, now we can't get him set up. All right, everybody, thank you. Real quick, somebody had asked about our podcast. We actually do a webcast. It's called Maritime Security Talk. It is on YouTube. If you search, you'll eventually find pictures of the four of us and plus Mike. And, with a dog is our logo. And with that, we appreciate everybody. And thank you and good luck. And thank you for your service. I, know it's weird coming from somebody that's been in the service, but you all have done it after me or have been in it before me. So still thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.